Welcome into Think Deeper for our final episode of the year. What we've got for you guys today is actually a live recording we did on Facebook Live on December 23rd. It was a great time, a really enjoyable hangout. A number of our deep thinkers were there commenting, sharing in the live stream with us. And so we're going to share the audio from that this week. If you did not get to participate in the live and leave your comments and feedback, if you're catching this on YouTube or on your podcast feed, reach out and comment, reach out and participate. We kind of had a more lighthearted year-end episode here, played some games and choose this or that kind of thing. And so join in. We're still checking the comments on that on our Facebook page, the Focus Press Facebook page, and on the YouTube channel as well. And so next we'll definitely let you guys know the next time we're going to do it. It was a great time, but the audio we've got for you today will be what we broadcasted there on the 23rd. And so this being our last episode of the year, we hope everyone had a Merry Christmas and have a great time enjoying New Year's this next upcoming weekend. And we'll be back with our more standard content January 2nd, starting the new year off with an episode kind of outlining a blueprint for the church's future. So I'll be looking for that starting in the new year, Lord willing. But for this week, here's our live episode. This is, as I said, our year-end episode. It's going to be a little more informal. We're not tackling the heavy topics like we sometimes do. And we hope you guys will participate if you're watching this live. And if you're coming back and watching it later, I know some of you are going to listen to this on the podcast later. You can hit us up on YouTube with your comments, your thoughts, but especially live. We're going to do some this or that kind of choosing. In fact, we got a 3-2-1 format. We're going to do 3 things, 2 things, 1 thing. Ending in our probably most famous segment is Hot Takes with Joe. And so we're doing a special year-end edition of Hot Takes where we each brought 1 hot take. And so we're going to finish with that on our 3-2-1. But let's start off with number 3. 3 hymns. Give us an overrated hymn or church song, underrated, properly rated. Who's jumping in?
Well, you start.
Oh, me to start. Okay.
And again, if you're listening, underrated song, church song, properly rated, overrated, go ahead and leave your thoughts.
Yeah, this is one of those things always interesting to see which ones people like and don't like. So there were 2 that kind of made my final cut for, I'm going to do overrated first. Just 2 that I've never really, I'm only going to give one just in case one of it is, or I don't want to take one of y'all's. How Great Thou Art is not that great. I am not a big fan of How Great Thou Art. And I know that that's going to maybe get me canceled.
Are you sure that, whoa, we're not to the hot takes yet, buddy.
Yeah.
We're not to the hot takes yet.
Yeah.
Holy smokes.
That's rough.
Not a big fan. And I don't even think it's from, you know how some songs get oversang. I don't even think that's really for me. I've just never really liked the song. You know, I know it's classic. I know it's one of the ones that everybody loves. Not my thing. So yeah, I don't know if any of y'all have a one that's spicier than that. I'm going to go properly rated next. And this one, I don't know if this one's going to make. This one is one that does get oversang, but I think it's properly rated. Our God, He is Alive. I really like that song. I think that's a really good one. And I know that gets, so my dad speaks on the weekends. And when I was growing up with him, we would go maybe 20, 25 weekends a year. And I am pretty sure at 95% of the weekend seminars that Dad went to, they would sing Our God, He is Alive on Sunday. Like just sang all the time. It's just kind of the Church of Christ anthem is the way I'd put it. But I really like it. I think it's really good. So I think that one's properly rated. Underrated, I'm assuming y'all, I am a poor wayfaring stranger. Y'all heard that one?
I don't think so.
I'm certainly not going to sing it.
Yeah.
It's got kind of a not creepy melody, but the melody is very, very interesting. You'll have to go listen to it after this. But that one to me is underrated because it doesn't get sung a lot. Sounds really pretty. The words I really like. Again, hopefully some of our listeners know that song. Man, you guys have been in the Church of Christ your whole life and don't know I'm a poor wayfaring stranger.
No, I do. And I'm sure if you sang it, I would know it.
Yeah. Well, I'm not going to bless you with that.
Come on.
I'll maybe after
be
we're
worse
off
than
the
mine.
air.
Yeah.
So those are my 3, though. Those are my 3.
I'll tell you what's got a creepy, but I love it. I call it the Godfather song, is Flee as a Bird. Like,
yeah.
And
Godfather.
that's what I call it.
Like
It sounds like a Godfather thing,
It
you know?
does.
No, that's a. I love the song, but it definitely sounds like it.
All right, Joe, give
Okay,
your three.
I'll go next. So I would start with the most overrated, and I'm going to get into this actually with a bit of my hot take coming up. So, spoiler alert: I cannot stand the Greatest Commands.
Whoa.
I
You
cannot
just stole
stand
mine. I'm right there with
the
you.
Greatest Commands.
Paul said do everything decently and in order, and four parts singing different songs at the same time is not in order.
I just
when
can't.
It sounds good. I mean,
No, and it gives nothing. It gives no edification.
Okay.
It's nothing.
Especially
it
as
sounds
a
good.
bass, it's like.
Yeah, the bass is the lamest part. Okay, I'll agree.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well,
we
and
disagree there for sure.
there's a lot of Led Zeppelin songs that sound good too, but I'm not singing them in church. So if we're going off of what sounds good, it's it. So okay, that's my overrated. My properly rated, I think, is "It Is Well with My Soul." Love that song. Love. I almost thought about putting this underrated because of how good that is. I think it's great. And my underrated is, and it's the lyrics are so simple, but as a call to worship, be still and know. I love Be Still and Know. And I love Humble Yourselves Inside the Lord. I still remember Dean Murphy getting up at Bear Valley and leading that. And it just is always so good as a call to worship. I love that, but Be Still and Know, I sing it to the kids. Growing up, they're still young. Harrison, though, got it for probably every night of the first 2.5 years of his life. Saying that one a lot, but I changed it to, instead of Be Still and Know that I am God, Be Still and Know that He is God, because I don't want my 2-year-old thinking I'm God. But just
exactly.
just in case. But I love that song, and I think again as a call to worship, it's just the perfect, like, let's calm down, let's recognize and get serious about it. So that's my answer.
So real quick, Jack, before you go, I'm looking on Facebook right now and I see my wife commented that she commented the Old Rugged Cross is overrated. That was the other one I was going to throw out there for overrated.
I get it.
I don't, and she put because it's slow. I'm not a big fan of the way the cross kind of seems idolized in that song.
Yeah.
It's like it mentions Jesus once, and the rest of the time is 90% of the song is focusing on the cross itself. And I know I get the sentiment behind it, but my wife and I are on the same page, and that's pretty cool.
I would also throw in, Jack, I'll let you take Greatest Commands and go off on that for a second. Mansions Over the Hilltop.
Yeah.
Way overrated. I'm not a fan of that. I just don't like that song.
I would say because mansion is also not the proper translation of where that's from, right?
It's not, and it's John all 14. me. I'm okay with being poor here because I'm going to be rich someday. And I know that's not really the meaning, but kind of is. All right, so I'll start with overrated. I said Greatest Commands. Titus in the comments tacked on Someday for similar reasons, and he's right. It's just chaotic, just too much going on there. So Greatest Commands, let's see, I need a properly rated. It's kind of funny that you picked Our God, He is Alive. That was going to be one of mine, or my other one was going to be How Great Thou Art. It's just a great song. So, properly rated. Underrated. I love His Grace Reaches Me. Fantastic song. That one, I had another one, but I think I'll go with that one. So, let's see, we had... somebody say Greatest Commands is their favorite song. Sorry, we trimmed on your favorite song.
Hey, I'm with you. Whoever that was, I'm with you.
I'll get into it in just a second. Yeah.
And then an underrated Come Share the Lord. So that is a good one as
well. Oh, that's a great one.
It really
great
is.
one.
All right, so that was our three: overrated, underrated, properly rated. Tell us if we're wrong. Greatest Commands is kind of the big dividing line here, and How Great They Are. So
come on,
tell us who's
that's
right there.
That's blasphemy, though. One was written in like the 90s. How Great Thou Art.
The Greatest Commands is literally straight scripture, Joe. That's literally what it is.
Overrated. Yeah.
It's straight scripture if we all read the verse at different times at the same time.
Yeah. Have you ever read 1 Corinthians 12 through 14?
Yeah, it's the singing to one another. Like, I can't hear what you're saying. You can't, it makes a nice noise together, but the words kind of get lost in the shuffle. Okay.
Whatever you're saying.
Yeah, again, if you're listening, or if you're catching it later on YouTube, you're hearing on the podcast later.
I would love to know if it really is the divide.
We might have to put a poll up.
What's the poll here? Which side does the public fall on? Will's side or Jack and Joe's
we'll drop
side?
a poll. I'm sure I can do that somewhere on here, but I don't have any idea. All right. Overrated.
Jack sounds like such an old man. I don't know.
Yeah, exactly.
Seriously, man.
Hey son, he calls Robbie in. Can you help me with this?
I'm outside of my element here, which is funny that Facebook is the thing I don't know how to run. I mean, that's the old social media anyway. All right, so that was our three. Number two, this or that. We've got a few questions of choose one. Sermon on the Mount or Pentecost, if you could be present for one. The problem is I don't speak Greek or Hebrew, so assuming you have a translator.
It'd be the same as Greatest Commands. Can't understand the other. Sorry.
On Pentecost, everybody was hearing in their own language, so you wouldn't have a problem, right?
Hey, there you go.
Okay,
there you go.
That's pretty good.
Somebody else go first.
So, yeah, Joe, Sermon on the Mount or Pentecost, if you had to be present for one or the other.
I mean, the Sermon on the Mount is basically kind of a giving of the new law type of thing. Like, it's, I'd have to say that. First off, being in the presence of Jesus, though the miracles taking place at Pentecost would be wild, the starting of the church. Now, that's a tough one, but I would say
3,000
Sermon on
getting
the Mount.
baptized, yeah.
Sermon on the Mount, probably.
Yeah. Again, like you said, it's Jesus. It's everything that he laid out in that teaching. The way, I mean, like how revolutionary it was and shaking up everything they knew. But man, the sound like a violent rushing wind, tongues like flames over their heads, hearing people in the tongues. Yeah. I mean, like I said, I don't speak Greek or Hebrew. I wouldn't have to. I would have heard Peter in English, which is crazy. So,
what are you going with, Jack?
Sermon on the Mount.
Man, that's the one I was going to say. So now I got to figure out how I can make a case for the other one.
Yeah, no.
The Sermon on the Mount is my those are like my three favorite chapters in the New Testament. I love reading that. So many. I mean, you could preach a year's worth of sermons just on those three chapters, and so being able to hear that, like Joe said, being in the presence of Jesus. Yeah, I think we're gonna go 3 for 3 on that. Sermon on the Mount was definitely the one that I would go with there.
All right.
Though I think there is a strong enough case on the other side that if somebody made that, it would be really difficult to be like, oh, you're
to be able to say, and not that you want to necessarily maybe not brag about this, but I was there the day the church was founded, type of thing.
Yeah,
that would
right.
be that would be pretty cool.
Yeah,
to say that you were there for that and to witness it all. Yeah.
If you're watching with us, tell us which one would you rather be there for, Sermon on the Mount or Pentecost? All right, our next this or that. Which one do we want to do first? Let's do the Old Testament thing. All right, knowing what you know now, so you're already a Christian, you know the plan of salvation, you know the church roughly and all that, and if you could only study one for the rest of your life, Old Testament or New, which one are you going with?
Jack, you got to start this one.
Okay, it is my turn to go first, isn't it? Oh, man. Old Testament. It's bigger. The Psalms you could do forever. The Kings, I mean, there's the Exodus, the typology. I'm really into the typology. If people listen to the episodes, sometimes I'll throw in stuff that I've learned from there of stuff that's foreshadowing Jesus, the church, and things like that. The prophets. Yeah, I think I would go with the Old Testament.
I think you stole my answer because before we got on, it's like, well,
I told you
who's going to choose Old Testament? Oh,
I was thinking Old Testament anyway. I mean, like, that's not to put down the New Testament, Will.
No.
Like, I'm not going, nobody needs that. No,
who needs it? I was going to say, I like to study Jesus. I don't know about you guys. Apparently not. But
that's the thing is, I do. That's why I'm picking the Old Testament.
Yeah, that's exactly it. That's all.
Fair enough.
Previews. I was going to make a really stupid comparison. I'm not. Go ahead.
Now we have to.
You gotta reveal it in a second. I'm going New Testament for sure. I don't know, just so much about studying what Jesus said, what he did, and then obviously the way the church operates today. I'm not going to be arrogant enough to say that I already know all that, so I'm going to go to the Old Testament. I don't. Like, there's just so much there, and there's so much real life application there to be able to say you're going to be cut off at Malachi for the rest of your life. Sorry, Habakkuk, I'm leaving you in the dust and going with, Ephesians and Galatians.
I'm going to be arrogant enough to say that I know enough. No, I would say Old Testament wise, I'm very weak Old Testament wise,
sure.
Especially as you get into 1st, 2nd Samuel and Kings and the Chronicles. Like, I'm telling you, as a kid, and this is not to brag at all, as a matter of fact, it shows how poorly I did. I read through the Bible 3 times. It was, like each year you just kind of read through. Yeah, pat yourself on the back. There are times where somebody reads something and I go, I've never read that in my life.
Right.
Usually like from one of those.
You didn't retain it. Yeah,
exactly. Like, I've never heard that in my life. Well, yeah, clearly I have. I've read through the Bible, the entirety. But the problem was I was probably falling asleep for half of it, as you read it at night. And so that's a reading comprehension thing that the reason I didn't do great on my ACTs. I would say being able to go back and to dig into those, but also to Jack's point, the typology, knowing how Christ relates. When you dig into the Old Testament, the more I dig into the Old, the more it reveals about the New. Not that I know everything about the New or anywhere close to it, but I've spent the majority of all my Bible studying specifically the Pauline epistles. But there's so much that I know nothing about Old Testament wise. So yeah, that's my answer.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like we had the gender episodes that we did earlier in the year, where like Genesis 1 through 3, we did almost a month on Genesis 1 through 3, and touching like one corner of the subject there. And so I think there's a lot there. I think there's a lot. Never ending. Plus, I mean, like if you're really into literature, like epics, you've got that in the Old Testament. Reading through the Kings and the Chronicles and Samuel and Judges, I mean, it's just unbelievable. So much.
And again, for our listeners, this is knowing what we know now, not like if we were coming. Of course, if we knew nothing, it would be New Testament. Of course, knowing what we know in our current level of study, just to again make that in case you're not being
right.
Okay, next one.
All right, somebody else is starting. This is our last of the this or that, and I guess you guys can participate listening, especially live. But this is, I guess, more for us, the hosts. Which podcast guest would you choose if you could have one as a podcast guest, Paul or Moses? This is similar to the last question in old or new, but
I think it's my turn to go first.
Yeah, go ahead.
Man, with Moses, you've got the author of the first 5 books of the Bible. You've got the guy who took them across the Red Sea, took them into the wilderness, got to see the Promised Land, didn't get so much there with Moses. And I'm still going to go Paul, I think. When you think about how much of the New Testament was written by Paul, you think about mainly just because of his transformation to go from being a zealous Pharisee, subscriber or keeper of the law, to being the most successful evangelist of all time. To be able to get him on the podcast and talk about, hey, what was it like when you were on the road to Damascus? Hey, that 3 days where you couldn't see, what was going through your head? All those things. I'm going Paul on that, just because of how integral he is to the understanding of the way the church started. All the people he met as he was going on these missionary journeys. You could ask him about, hey, what was it like meeting this person? What was it? Why did you have such a problem with John Mark? All these things that are just really fascinating to me that I would want to ask Paul on Think Deeper if we could have him. But how about y'all?
Joe, go ahead. I'll finish this one, and then we'll start hot takes with you.
Will makes such a strong case. I'm waffling. When you first said it, I'm like, oh well, Moses, and then I thought, well, Paul. I think I'm back to Moses, and just I would love to hear the story of him being on Sinai. Like, what must that have been like to be there? We were actually just, talking with a guy that earlier this morning, Jack and I were about Exodus 31 and God coming down and just the lightning and the thunder and him answering the voice of thunder, like, whoa. And to see that, and for him to be, to see the burning bush and all, I mean, boy, I don't know. I would love to talk to Paul from a questions perspective, Paul. From a narrative, let him talk perspective, Moses.
So you're saying like interview style,
both, Joe.
Paul.
I mean, like
no. Interview style. If
podcast guest, though, if you could only have one,
it would depend on the type of podcast. We like back and forth, so it'd be Paul.
Pick
if
one.
It was
pick which type of podcast you're doing then. Nice try, pal.
I think I'd go with Moses. Actually,
yeah. Joe's not a big New Testament guy. Clearly,
clearly not.
The case Paul's for Paul is good, but I think I'm Moses because, again, I like the 120 years. You've got the plagues. I mean, like how crazy that was, the burning bush, how crazy that was, Sinai, how crazy that was.
Of course, Moses
the wandering. Yeah, I mean that the parting of the Red Sea. I mean, like all the things he saw, but that relationship with God, and the bonus one that hasn't been mentioned is the Transfiguration. I want to know, what happened there? What were you guys talking about up there? And it gives us a little bit, but not really much.
I think the difference here with this is there's, I would say, 80 to 90% of Moses' life was laid out where we can read it. Paul, not so much.
That's true.
You have a much smaller percentage of Paul's life, and so there's so much more to explore and kind of find out about. Whereas Moses is like, okay, you crossed the Red Sea. We read about that. Okay, the plagues. We read about that. Like how much further light could he shed on those things?
I was just thinking about it. We ask Moses, what was it like? And he just opens the Bible. Yeah, I
Yeah,
wrote
like-
about it here. Just
Yeah,
read this. It's like,
exactly.
no.
it.
But
You
what was
have
it like?
my
He's like,
journal, man.
it's right here. Yeah, it's right here.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
That's very true. That's a great point. Ah, yeah, tough one.
Gloria would
Well.
vote for Moses. She's got a little book and it has Bible drawings in it. It has Saul, before the conversion, and he's got like a mean face. She's I don't want to meet him at Jesus' house. I'm gonna be shy around him. So
That's funny.
I'm like, no, he's nice now. No, he's not. So all right.
I'm
we
gonna
got-
need you two to disagree on something before the end of the episode.
We're
It's
all
almost
Testament
like y'all are
people.
almost
okay?
like y'all are
Yeah.
brothers, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, unfortunately, we do agree too much. But hey, that's what you're here for, Will.
Yeah, I guess so.
Somebody for us to team up against. We got, in fact, our sister commented Moses. A couple votes for Paul. So thank you to those who are joining in there. That's an interesting one. It's similar to the Old Testament, New Testament one. My mom messaged and said she thought I was going to ask which one was your favorite podcaster of the three of us. Please don't comment that. I don't want to start a poll. I would lose. So
It'd be pretty funny.
yeah, no, I don't.
yeah,
I don't want to do that.
Yeah, our wives just get on and comment us, like Rachel comments Will and Alyssa comments Joe. Yeah,
Yeah.
I would
nobody
hope.
else though.
Now, this is an interesting comment from Nathan here about. He wants to say Paul, but from a historical perspective, so many people try to discredit Moses. There's so much about like he didn't do that. That's not real. That's an exaggeration. Whatever else. So that would be interesting.
So Moses, were you part of the P document or the E
Right.
or the Q document? Like,
Right. And
Yeah.
I mean, I guess that goes back
That's
around
true.
to he would just say it's written right there. This is God's word. But still, like talking to the guy would be
That'd be interesting.
And nice thing is, we won't have to choose someday. I don't think there's going to be Think Deeper podcast in heaven, but we'll at least get to have that chat with him. All right, the year-end edition of Hot Takes with Joe,
boy.
in which we all get to drop a hot take. And so, who's leading the line on Hot Takes with? Hot Takes with.
I think
all
Joe's
of
got to
us?
go first on this one.
That's true. It is your
All right,
segment.
all right. I've been thinking about this, and I put this one out to my wife, and I don't know how this one's not going to be received super well. I
Please don't,
think.
please
so
don't get us in
nervous.
so much trouble,
Oh, boy.
please.
No, I don't
the
think it's
Me
going
and
to get
Jack
anybody in
have
trouble.
no idea what this is, by the way.
Tis the season to be jolly.
No. Nice. I think songbooks with the 4-part harmonies are killing Christian music. That's my hot take. And let me explain it. I went over to Ghana. I was fortunate enough to go over to Ghana a couple of years and do some mission work and teach in Bible school over there. And in Accra, they had a church of 700, which was the biggest I had attended at the time. May still be the biggest I had attended. No song. I don't know if they had songbooks. If they did, it certainly didn't have any of the 4-part harmony. Some of the greatest singing. Was everybody on key? Not even close. The heart behind the singing, because we weren't worried about, did I hit this? Did I hit that? Oh, this is my part where we go low. This is why I can't stand the greatest commandments. To me, it's all about beauty
the
and
song, not the commands themselves, right?
Yeah,
Not a big fan of those either.
yeah, not a big fan of those.
Not big on the whole love thing. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think it is a detriment, and everybody I know who very much pushes the 4-part harmony, it destroys the people that, like me, who don't sing super well. I'm not great on the 4-part harmony, and you find yourself going, where do I fit into this? For a long time, and I'm starting to come around at Jackson Temple, but for a long time, I couldn't stand singing. I would rather listen to 20 sermons in a row than have to go to Devo, at somebody's house and sing like 20 songs. Just not my thing. Because anytime you get into the 4-part harmony, if you don't know exactly where you fall, well, I can't really hit the bass notes, or I'm not a tenor, or you can sing melody, but it's like, the problem is those books very much force you into one. And I find myself, and then maybe this is just a me thing, I find myself looking at the notes instead of the words 9 times out of 10. So when we come together, when we're singing at a Devo now, especially, I'm starting to like them more, not the Devo songs themselves as much, but where you're just singing out to God and I can really focus on the words and I don't have to focus on hitting every single note. 4-part harmonies aren't ruining the church. Books that very much focus on and push us toward the 4-part harmonies, in my opinion, ruins the spirit behind singing. And it gets us into, is it beautiful? And you miss the words completely. And the whole point of singing.
That's what I was going to ask you when you said it's killing. How did you put it? It's killing.
I think it's killing the spirit of singing.
So can you
Personally,
one
I
more
don't think
time
so.
elaborate on what you mean by that? Just you're saying because you're having to focus on the singing itself. Everybody's
focused so much on the beauty of it and technical aspect of singing and hitting the note just right. Did I sing this one? And I'm supposed to go high instead of low. And then you're like, oh man, I'm off. And I don't think this is the technical base enough with the technicalities, right? With the technical spirit or the technical portion of singing. Are you singing with your whole heart to God? If you're singing out, that's all that matters. I find those that very much push, again, the perfection of the 4-part harmony, in my opinion, miss out on a lot of that. They're so busy worried about the technical portion of the music that they miss the spirit and the words behind it. And the words of a song like How Great Thou Art, Our God, He is Alive, things like that, the words, It Is Well With My Soul, just read through the words without even the music, and you'll notice the power behind these songs. 4-part harmony, to me, the books that push it, I'm not against people singing in that. I think it is pretty, but is this just me? Maybe I'm way off. Do you find yourself reading the notes instead of the music itself?
It seems like the case for what you're saying. I don't think it's as drastic as drawback as you're saying, but I could see how simpler. I know some people that are just really into psalm chanting, which number one gets you back into the psalms, but number two, the chanting is like everybody's singing the exact same way, and so it's again much more lyric driven.
And let me also say this real fast. We all have the diva. Our church doesn't. We've all been to churches where there's the diva, the woman who's got this, operatic voice, who just loves to go because she's the, she could go to the Philharmonic or whatever. Good for you. We're here to sing together. This ain't the Lisa show or the Karen show or whatever. Like, we're here to
Our
listen.
Apologies to anybody named Lisa.
Anybody named Lisa or Karen who sings loud. Sorry.
Joe's like on so many people's list. The Lisas, the Karens, the Gladyses.
Oh man,
Gladys. Right.
So yeah,
that's an interesting thought though, Joe. I'm with Jack. I can see, and I think there are almost certainly are people that take it way too far into the making sure that everything sounds just right and make sure their voice sounds just right, and they are not even paying attention to what they're singing or saying. I think the phrase "killing the spirit" it might be a little bit strong, but I can see where you're coming from.
I'll pass it off after this. I was recently at church where the guy literally stopped the song and chided everybody for not singing well.
That happened to you again? You said recently?
Recently.
I remember that happened to us when we were growing up, but wow.
No, that happened when we were growing up. That's another one. Recently, This happened where it was like, and starting a new song, trying to learn a new song. Not everybody is, we're trying to learn it. And what are you trying to learn? You're not learning the words. You're trying to notice based off where am I supposed to go on the 4-part harmony. And it wasn't fantastic.
I guess my counter argument would be, you got to have some kind of order to it, otherwise
no doubt.
Let's just all sing whatever tune we want. Well, you can't do that.
No, I agree. There has to be. And that's the whole point of the 4-part is to initially learn it. And so to learn any new song, but that's not technically the case because my parents, there's a great guy that came to Miller Street who was teaching how to sing through the Psalms. And they all got together and they decided on this hymn, and they created a song from, I think, Psalm 96 or something like that. It was really cool. There was no 4-part harmony there. There was, this is what we're choosing to sing, and we sang it out, and it was, and we'd actually still sing some of those on Wednesday night devos and such, or Wednesday night services where it was a singing service, and we pull out some of those songs and sing it. There was no songbook involved. We're all singing in unity, so there was clearly a unifying aspect there, but we didn't have the everybody's got to be, hit that harmony and hit the melody and make sure we're getting it just right. So maybe I may be pushing it a little too hard, but man, I think a lot of Christian music has lost the zeal with which a lot of these songs were intended. I mean, if you're, It Is Well With My Soul is one of my favorite songs. If you're reading through that second verse and not almost coming to tears, my sin, oh, the bliss of this glorious life, right, is nailed to the cross, and I bear it no more. Praise the Lord. Like, if that isn't powerful and hitting you on a different level because you're too worried about getting it right, you missed it.
The evidence behind what you're saying is look around at people's spirits when they're singing. And I don't know if you could necessarily fully blame this on the 4-part harmony thing, but you got a lot of people just going through the motions. But interesting thought.
Yeah,
interesting.
All right, Will.
Jack, you want me to go next? Okay,
go for it.
This is another one that I need to fully explain before anybody jumps on. And this may not be all that hot of a take, but
well, hold on before you do. Just to our live listeners, what do you think? We've got one or two saying what they think on the 4-part harmony thing. Give us your thoughts, and then Will give us another one.
Are you able to
agree with?
to read any. I don't have it pulled up. Are they agreeing with Joe? Not
Yeah.
agreeing with Joe?
Except our sister disagrees, so that'll be fun. Christmas dinner sitting around the
Oh,
table. So
well, you're wrong, Rach, but thanks.
yeah,
Or
shout
is
out
it,
to Rachel.
is it?
All right.
Okay. Nice. Will, go for it.
Nice. Okay, so I've observed this, I guess, really in the past 2-3 years. I think a lot of congregations, and it's going to sound terrible, overemphasize evangelism and underemphasize keeping their families that are already within the church out of the world, if that makes sense. It's like, and whenever somebody might hear me say we overemphasize evangelism, like, what on earth? How could you overemphasize evangelism? What I mean is, we spend all this money, all this time trying to filter. And the other thing is, what we really mean is baptize them. We don't mean make disciples. We mean get them in the water so that we can say we baptized 40 people through this program or 41 people this year. We spend so much time and energy doing that. And again, generalization, I understand. What do a lot of congregations have? A massive hole where their families are just falling through the cracks. They've got stuff going on and the elders aren't addressing them. You got their kids, the young people are becoming more and more worldly by the year. Basically, we spend so much time trying to make sure that we can kind of, sounds bad, but boost our baptism numbers, that we're not discipling our families that are already within the fold. We're not making sure that fathers are leading their homes spiritually. We're not making sure that young people are striving to be godly young men or godly young women. We're just so overly focused on making sure that, again, that we get people bad. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing. We need to be evangelized. We need to fulfill the Great Commission.
You say Will's saying don't go out and evangelize everybody.
That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is I see a problem when that's the majority of our focus, and we're kind of pushing aside the families within our congregations that have real struggles and that, let's be honest, are going by the way of the world. But because they're already baptized and because we don't need to evangelize to them, it has become, again, something that kind of gets pushed to the side. So I don't know if I articulated that well enough, but what do y'all have to add to that?
I agree.
I think it fits in with a lot of, my stuff I'm real passionate about with the church reset thing of, like, you're trying to bring in customers. You're just trying to get the numbers up, as many people in the door as possible. And it's not about the numbers. It's not about as many people as possible. It's about how many people can you bring to maturity and get to fulfill a role and get to live and walk in Jesus' footsteps. And if you bring a bunch of people in, but none of them are doing that, you didn't actually do anything.
Well, and I guess what I see is so much of, let's have a meeting, or let's have a budget meeting about how many new ways we can reach out and how many new ways we can, and all that's great, but we're neglecting discipling families. We're neglecting discipling young people that are already in the church. We're neglecting those things. Let's see how much money we can put towards getting more people baptized. And again, typically we leave it at baptize. We baptize them. Great. Good luck for the rest of your life. Basically, we're not going to do any other kind of discipling, but because we got them in the water, it can count toward our end of the year baptism count. Well, if that makes sense.
The misunderstanding about the Great Commission that I have written on and talked about a lot is it's not strictly an evangelism text. It's a complete disciple make
disciples,
text.
Right?
Baptize them and then teach them to observe all I commanded you. Like, if you go get them baptized, you didn't do it. This is a really interesting comment we got. Rusty says, overemphasizing corporate evangelism, yet underemphasizing personal evangelism. And so, like, the big events, try and get people into the big house, but rather than having your neighbor over and sitting across your table kind of thing, where
I think the corporate
growth
thing
happens.
One of the things with members is, not only are they not being a disciple, but it's like, oh, the church is kind of taking care of that for us. They're hosting this big event. They're doing this. So I don't really need to contribute with my personal evangelism because we've got this big program. We've got this big event. The church is kind of handling that for me. So I don't really need to. I think that's a very good point.
And it's interesting. I think where you're seeing this, corporate evangelism used to really work back in the 50s and 60s. We're going to go knock doors. And how many baptisms do we have from that? That's fantastic.
Tent meetings, gospel
right.
meetings,
Tent meetings.
Right.
That's great. Those are corporate evangelism. We haven't come out of the 60s. We're still knocking on doors and people are like, get off my property. I want no part of that. Now, I'm not saying it doesn't work. Shout out Jerry Groves in Colorado. I mean, he goes, knocks on doors, but he prays with people. I love the way Jerry does it is, hey, what can we pray for you? How can we pray for you? What do you need? Things like that. He'd meet the needs of his community and he'd get in their lives. And that's great. But that goes more to the personal end. And so I think the church does these church sponsored events, a lot of which go nowhere. But it's like, man, if I just took a friend that I had from work and I had him come over and I had you guys come over to the house and we had 4 families together and he just got to be around other Christians, like,
sure,
that is huge. And can I also add on to your hot take here with, I know this isn't my hot take, but Can we also stop acting like those who have their kids faithful, it was just kind of a crapshoot, and those that didn't, it's like, well, glad you did and mine didn't, but we basically did the same thing. No, you didn't. No,
Right.
you didn't.
And go ahead.
And I think it's frustrating that the families that kept their kids faithful, we need to go to them and go, what'd you do? How did you do it? What did you do different than anybody
Teach a
else?
class, something. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Have them teach a class, use their wisdom. What did they do? We are like, well, your kids are faithful, my kids aren't, but we're basically the same.
And my point is, in the church, because again, you might not like the phrasing, but because of the overemphasis on evangelism, we view the parents that keep their kids faithful as, again, like you said, that's really not that important. What's more important is baptizing people. No,
right.
Families raising their kids to be faithful is so incredibly important. It's not that evangelizing isn't, but like you said, Joe, we kind of treat that as, oh man, they got real lucky. How about that? Really cool, but let's focus on more important things. That's just not it at all.
Right. When we could be, to your point, utilizing their wisdom to keep our families faithful. What did you do? Right. And that's the importance of elderships, having faithful kids. Why we shouldn't scamp on that in the least is because you need to be able to look to your elder and go, what'd you do? How'd you keep your kids faithful? And he's supposed to be able to keep the flock faithful as well. I love that point. I think that's a great hot take. Jack?
All right, Jack.
What you got?
I've got my nuclear hot take, and then I've got my regular one.
Boy.
And
buddy.
So that we don't go down the road of negativity, we don't want to be all negative here. I'll drop the nuclear one and then move on, and I'm not going to talk about it. Churches should not be bigger than 120. Take number two.
No.
Take number two. Take number two. You heard me. Take number two is we do not have a problem of elders being overbearing most of the time, of lording it over most of the time. We have a problem of them not taking enough authority. And so I would recommend, if we have any elders listening, know what the boundaries of your role are and execute them. Like make sure you're doing your job. This is something I'm writing on a lot. I recommend people go check out the Becoming a People book page on Facebook. We think everything's voting. We think everybody has to say. We got to poll. We got to survey the people. No. The reason you have that job is so that we don't have to do that, because
it's not a democracy.
Right? Yeah, it's not a democracy, and there are people that are tasked with because you look at the qualifications for Timothy as the preacher. And for the elders that he's supposed to appoint, and Titus is supposed to appoint, is like, you better be the best man in this congregation. You better be the, above reproach, blameless.
The elite.
Nobody has anything against you. And that's not, patting yourself on the back, I'm better than everybody else, because you have to be humble too. But you also need to, the proof is in the pudding that you have done the work to be the responsible man. You are somebody that we can trust with the gospel, with the church, with the direction of it. And, kind of, to your point earlier, Joe, about we're all the same. When people do it's a democracy, it's a vote, we all have a say. No, certain people have earned the right to have that say. Certain people have earned the right to be the shepherd. God has appointed them through the qualifications he's given. And so something Joe's probably sick of hearing me say this is, when you're on the highway, there's a speed limit, and it's dangerous, to go flying over that speed limit, go 95 miles an hour. It's also dangerous to drive 20 miles an hour. And if you're driving 20 miles an hour on the highway and everyone's passing you at 75, and you go, well, I don't want to get a speeding ticket, I don't want to be dangerous by speeding, cool, you need to go a little bit faster, and then as you creep closer to 75, then let's start worrying about speeding. And so many times we have this, I don't want to lord it over, I don't want to be domineering, I don't want to be... We're so far away from that most of the time that we need to get a whole lot more in that direction before we start worrying about going too far. And so, very, very high praise to the elders who rule well, as Paul tells Timothy. Those who are doing this job are saying, I'm your shepherd, I'm over your soul, I'm going to be in your life, I'm going to be in your house, you're going to be in my house, so I'm going to know you, I'm going to know what you do, I'm going to know your kids' names, your wife, that is so valuable.
I'm going to shepherd.
Yeah, I'm going to shepherd.
Yeah.
That is a God-given permission to insert yourself into people's lives. You're not being nosy, you're not overstepping, you've got those boundaries, work within them. And so and not only do they need to hear that, members need to hear that. Let them do their job well.
That's right.
Multiple times we have writings of, make their job easier. Don't be a pain in their side. Don't be, as in 1 Thessalonians 5, it's in Hebrews 13, let them do their job with joy. Don't make it hard. Don't be that sheep that's always running over the fence that they're having to drag back, kicking and screaming. And yet we have that with people. Well, if you don't do what I want, I'm going to the church down the road. Well, we voted on it, or people are saying this. No. So my hot take is, we need a lot more God-given execution of authority rather than voting, things like that. So
We're going to rewind here.
no, you're not.
Yes, we are.
You're not doing it.
If you don't, I will. If you don't, I will, because I think 120 is too high.
Your wife
I think
commented with the chicken bok bok.
Yeah, I saw it.
No, okay.
No.
Like I said, hey, it's Christmas time. It's the season to be jolly. As I said, I don't
we
want
got
to
a few
be
more things to
pugnacious.
hit, Joe.
That's one of the qualifications. Don't be pugnacious, and so I don't want to. I don't want to be starting anything 2 days before Christmas. Just stew on it a little bit. I know you said your number is a little lower. Anyway, that's
stay tuned for future episodes.
That goes hand in hand with my other take, though, about eldering and shepherding and all that.
No,
so
I agree.
You can do the math. It's not that hard.
That's why unpacking that would help. Is it's not a blanket statement of if your church is 250 or above, you're going to hell.
I didn't. Yeah, no, not at all.
Not at all. And I don't want people to get frustrated or say like, from that hot take perspective, we're allowed to have hot takes and not let it destroy everything. We're not trying to be negative. We're trying to say if we were going to do it best, to the best of our ability, if we were going to have a church that was a family that was there, that the elders that ruled well, the elders could be in everybody's life and really helping them toward heaven, what number would you put it at? How many can a man, and this is why you have multiple elders, but how many 250 member congregations have men that we would put in the upper echelon? They should have a ton. A lot of them, unfortunately, don't have that many.
Have a handful, right?
Have a handful. Therefore, they don't have enough to actually do the eldering that they should.
Not only that, as a preacher, you see these things that Paul was telling Timothy, hey, instruct the rich this, instruct the widows this. Like, you're supposed to go into their lives and say, hey, you've got a lot of money. This is how you're supposed to do it. Can you imagine that? What we do is get up and preach a sermon on money, and man, if you got a lot, here's what you do. If you don't have much, here's what you do. Don't covet, don't do that. All right, blanket statement for everybody. He's like, no, go to those people. Well, you get to a point in which you've got a preacher that doesn't know everybody's name. Like, he can't possibly at a certain point. And so, things like that. But again, I told you, I don't want to be we had
negative. To unpack it.
And again,
it
is a fair thing. I'm not saying it's wrong to have more. I'm saying ideally for the things that we're supposed to do, for the family environment we're trying to create, that's very, very hard at a certain level. All right. So those are the hot takes. We had some great comments come in. Joel says the number is 144. Very biblical. The 12 by 12. I like that.
I love it.
Like that. Let's see. Yes, Alyssa giving me the chicken thing. Let's see. A couple very much agreeing with Will's take about building each other up lifelong. Let's see. This one pushing back a little bit on Joe's take about the music. Joel says he agrees with you broadly about the heart over sound priorities, but striving to make the singing beautiful it's a good thing in itself. And we don't want to have the Gnostic tendency of like, oh, the sound doesn't matter. No, it does.
Right. It does.
And so
it's how we go about it.
An interesting thing that comes back around. Somebody said there can be a general spirit of Chase said general spirit of coldness in the hearts of Christians that comes out in our singing. So some agreement, some disagreement. A great comment from Rachel about my elders thing about culture's influence of Psalter. Good grief. I can't read.
You're live, man.
I'm live. Culture's influence. We'll tell a story about that here in a minute. Culture's influence of softer masculinity more than a fear of lording it over, perhaps. That we don't know what masculine leadership is, and so they can't apply it anyway. So that's a very valid addition. All right, so that's our 3, 2, 1. 3 underrated, overrated, properly rated hymns. Choose 2 this or that, and then 1 hot take each. I gave 2 hot takes, just your bonus one. What we want to do, this is, again, our last episode of the year. We have had a great time, really enjoyed getting emails and messages and comments from listeners all along. I've had a lot of fun today. I hope everyone's enjoyed doing this that are following live. If you're catching it later, you'll have to watch out for our next live. We won't do many midday ones. It's the Friday before Christmas. We figured some folks are home. It's freezing. Yeah, nobody
everywhere.
Went out, so 2 o'clock seemed like a good time. But we'll do, in fact, in January, we're launching weekly Facebook Lives, YouTube Lives, and so be on
those
the lookout
will
for
be
that.
a whole lot shorter. And
I think 20, 30, 15, 20-minute things.
We're going to try to adapt it to, sorry to interrupt you.
No.
We're going to try to adapt it to, man, there's stuff happening in the culture all the time.
Right.
And we're always
almost.
texting each other, hey, we should really do a live on this and react to this, and we never really get around to it.
Yeah.
So I think the plan, and I don't want to speak for it just in case we need to change it, but it's to do it Thursday nights. We don't have a time yet, I don't think. Probably 7, I would imagine.
Just
something like
keep
that.
an eye out for the announcement. It'll be coming in January, mid-January or so. All right, so as we finish, that's kind of our episode, but we're going to just recap the year a little bit. We started the year off with 2 episodes on, we called it Redeeming the Time in a New Year. So kind of goals, personal improvement, growth. We're almost at the end of 2022. Any thoughts on that? Anything you've learned, adjustments, recommendations for next year, things you're going to do, goals you feel like you hit, goals you want to pick up stronger next year? Not everybody all at once.
Yeah.
Jack, you have a really easy job making us go first on everything.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
True. Why don't you go for it?
Yeah, that's true. Okay, fair
Good call.
enough. No, I know a lot of people are not big New Year's goals things, and you should not have to wait for January 1st to start a goal. But on the other hand, we have calendars for a reason. Years, we have festivals, we have feasts, we have Christmas, we have things that we do. And so it's always a good time to reset and think, where was I a year ago today, and how have I grown, how have I changed? And so the family worship thing, I mentioned Will's family worship guide. That is a really handy thing I recommend people get into. We've done a pretty good job in our house of the family devos. And so that's something I want to keep going into next year. Goals of personal stuff, work, scheduling. Man, there's just so many distractions. I've got to put Facebook and Twitter down way more often. And so that's what I'm shooting for in this next year, and being more regimented with my schedule and not burning the time that I do on my phone. You guys?
I'll go. So Rachel and I last year did a 75 hard challenge, and it's 70. If you don't know what it is, 75 straight days. You can't miss a day. And it's 2 45-minute workouts a day, a whole gallon of water, 10 pages of reading, and some kind of diet you have to stick to. And what I learned throughout that is that if you set your mind to something, it's very cliche, but you set your mind to something and you wake up knowing I have to get these things done today, guess what? You get it done. You know what I mean? The way the 75 challenge worked is if you got to day 31 and then you missed a day, you had to start all the way back over on day 0, and then you didn't complete it. And so we woke up every day going, look, no matter what, we have to get this stuff done. And again, I think so often we can get into, well, I'll get around to it later, or something along the lines of, I don't really have to get it done, so I'll push it to tomorrow. And that attitude can just permeate and just continue to run rampant. And so what we're going to do starting in a few weeks is basically do something like that, but for our spiritual growth. Bible study, prayer. Again, it's one of those things that it can be very easy. And I'll speak for me personally to be like, man, my morning is really busy. Let me get to that later in the day. And then guess what? Later in the day rolls around, you never get around to it. Or, man, my today is really busy. I'll do extra tomorrow, and you never do. And so rather than, and again, not to look at it as a burden or as something that, well, I've got to do my Bible reading, but do it as something, something like the mindset of, this is a part of my life, so this is something I'm just going to do. And we're pretty consistent about it, but I'd like to get even more consistent about it. And so that's kind of going to be me and Rachel's focus moving forward, is just waking up every day. We're going to get this done. We're going to get it done, before this time, and see where that goes every day. So again, with a specific focus on Bible study and prayer.
Yeah. Good for you. I think that's great. I think mine, from a personal perspective, from a work goal perspective, I think I hit everything that I was hoping to this year, and probably exceeded it. At this point, I probably work too much, so I need to set some boundaries on things. And so I'm going to work on setting boundaries. I'm going to work on my prayer life a lot more. I think that's the one thing that's easy to get on the chopping block. When your job is to talk to people all day, you'd think it'd be easier to talk to God, but it's also, this sounds horrible, but it can kind of be one of those that's like, that, I don't know, I'm just sick of talking. And so you can keep it quiet. And that sounds dumb. That's an excuse. I realize that, but I'm going to work on that as well. And just more consistently, Jack, I've been going to the gym with Jack when it's open on time, not holiday hours. Yeah. Anyway, yeah. And so I'm going to work on, more than anything, just establishing an exercising habit. I'm not setting a goal in terms of losing weight, anything like that. It's like, I just want to make sure that I have a healthy lifestyle. Right. Exactly. Getting the mindset right. So that's going to be my goal, is set the boundaries where I have time to focus on prayer and making sure I'm hitting the gym, things like that.
That's cool. Yeah. If you're listening, you're a goal type of person. What is it for you? Is it family worship time? Is it prayer? Is it more Bible time? Is it greater commitment to the church? What is it? I really challenge you to pick something, put some time in to be intentional about that. All right, just kind of a special for the deep thinkers,
real quick,
our listeners.
I'm going to audible, Jack. I don't know where you were going to go.
I'm just hitting these last couple things we got, so go ahead.
Okay, so I'll give mine so that you guys have time to think, because we didn't prep this before. Because I really want our listeners, if you're still on, we want to know what episodes y'all like to listen to.
Yeah.
So do us a favor, comment your top 3. I'm going to give my top 3. I'm going to ask these two guys if you need to pull out your phone real quick so you can remember what are the top 3 episodes that we recorded this year that you enjoyed the most, that you enjoyed the discussion for the most, because I want our listeners to do that exact same thing.
If you can't think of 3, fair enough, we're putting you on the spot. Just at least leave one. Leave one that stood out, an episode that you enjoyed or whatever.
Leave your favorite. So my 3, and this is in no particular order, it's just the way that I'm kind of going through it. The what 3 church practices would you change episode? That one was a really enjoyable episode to do. It was on the heels of our church reset episode, or church reset series rather. And it was one of those things that we all sat down and, hey, kind of for fun, hypothetical, if you could change something about the church, what would you do? And so we each had 3 things that we changed or that we submitted. So that was really fun to kind of discuss that. Another one that I really enjoyed was our Halloween episode. One of the ones that was more recent. That was just a lot of fun, mainly because we kind of had some disagreement and we got to kind of hash out a little bit different viewpoints and different takes there. So that one was a really good one. And then I knew I was going to forget what was. Oh yeah, that's right. Our public school episode. Really enjoyed doing that one. Yep. I think that's one of our higher rated ones. So my three favorites, and I might be overlooking some, but the Halloween episode, the what 3 church practice would you change? And then the abandoned public schools episode, probably the 3 that I enjoyed most recording for the year. But how about you guys? What are you finding?
Go ahead, Joe.
We've done a ton of these. This is what I'm realizing. We've done a lot of these. I liked, and this is a cop out because there's multiple. I really liked the masculinity, feminism, like that whole arc.
Sure.
And so I think our masculinity, especially with the gym podcast coming out and some of the things we've been focusing on, I'm hoping to maybe start working on a book toward that. That one is just standing out to me. I agree with you. The 3 things we change, I love. Yeah. And there was one other that I saw in there. I actually really liked having Carry On. It made me think about, with the angels and demons and such, but I don't know that I would put that in. There was one other that I had, and I was looking back through. Hold on. The 3 church practices you change. Boy, that's tough. No offense, Will, you weren't on for this one. I really did like be a better member, minister, or elder. That's just poorly named because it was me and Jack discussing, and Jack's like, well, we have to get this, like, it can't be, me and you just, working with one another. It has to have like an actual name. Like, yeah, but it was so much more than a member, minister, or elder, because I don't get to just shoot the breeze. I get to shoot the breeze with Jack all the time. I don't know what I'm talking about. I don't get to ask him these questions all the time. And so I did like that, but
shows like the episode Will wasn't on was the best one we've ever
had. Probably
Amen.
The Carrie Gillis one as well. Singleness. Yeah. You weren't on for that one. What other one? Anyway.
Okay, yeah. I mean, the Halloween one was a lot of fun. I think it was one of the most fun to record. There's another one that was more fun, but we're going to tell you about in a minute.
True.
Let's see. You brought up the masculinity, feminism, or femininity marriage arc. I think that was like really important stuff. I felt like we did well. The ones that we put like extra work into because we wanted to get it right. Not that we just, you can't turn on the microphones and talk every week. Like, it'd be terrible. And so we do research, we do outlines, we exchange notes and all that. But the ones, Christians in self-defense, we put a lot of time into. That was
critical race theory.
And critical race theory. Right. We all like divided up. You do this part, you do the history of it, you do this, you do that.
Listen, and we pushed that off for a few weeks.
Yeah, like we multiple times we're like, we're not ready. So really putting the work in on those. And then the Q&A one. I mean, the questions that got sent in, that was hard. We had a little debate, all that. So that was fun. So I'd probably say those 3. I mean, there were a lot of fun ones.
Sure.
Really appreciate, we got some comments here. Somebody said the marriage series. So as we had said, male, female, and marriage. The homeschool episode spurred lots of good conversations in our friends' Discord. That's cool. That's really neat to hear. The Halloween episode, a couple votes for that. Angels and demons. Let's see. Another person said the sexuality series and the church reset discussions. So those were first half of the year. Definitely go check those out if you didn't. Let's see. Let's see. Oh, this is cool. This guy, Nathan, he says, grateful for many of them as they've allowed dialogue with many who do not quite understand technology. I've gone over to my father's home, a guy who still uses a flip phone, and I've been able to use your topics as basis for deep and quality conversation with a Christian man who I love and respect.
Awesome. Thanks, Nathan.
Yeah, thank you very much. There's a few
fantastic.
here that said, it came up in other discussions. The Halloween episode spurred discussion, the homeschool episode, that one. That, honestly, and I'm sure you guys would agree, like, that's what we do this for. We hope it's not just one person listening, but that really this is getting biblical ideas out, and that's why we take it seriously. We want to make sure we're saying true things.
We want to think deeper.
Getting people to
want
think
everybody
deeper.
yeah.
Exactly.
That's the name. Another comment: reclaiming sexuality from the culture. The church reset episodes. It's time for box checking Christianity to die. A lot of fun ones there too. So again, I know we're going to post this on the podcast feed on Monday. There will be people who are not watching live. I'm sorry you're not getting to share your feedback. Come to the Facebook post and drop your comments. We want to hear from as many people as possible. Or if you listen on YouTube, leave a comment there. Your favorites. Just join in the conversation. Sorry you can't be read live on the air like the rest, but it's just a lot of fun. Be sure to share your feedback as well. All right. We're going to share a couple of funny stories from behind the scenes that we've had this year. I think we each have one. Will, or who's doing the Toy Story one?
I got to share this one.
Go for it. There was the baptism myths episode, I think.
Yes, so there's an episode debunking baptism myths. I think we posted it way back in April or something like that. Whenever we were recording back then, we would go back and listen. Jack would post the raw audio to us, like send it to us and say, "Hey, listen, if you catch anything wrong or anything we need to cut, let us know." That was the most fun raw audio to go back and listen to of all time. So what happened? And I don't even remember which part. We are in the middle of our episode talking about baptism myths, and all of a sudden, Toy Story, the song "You Got a Friend in Me," that one right there.
Whoops.
All of a sudden starts playing, and me and Jack looked at her like, what on earth? And Joe pulls out his phone. He had set some kind of alarm, and that was his that was the sound for his alarm, was "You Got a Friend in Me." So we, of course, had to cut that part. The best part, it's not even the best part, though. The funniest part throughout the entire rest of the episode, I encourage you, go back and listen. Jack, mainly, Joe, sometimes me, sometimes, we're dropping Toy Story references that we did not cut throughout the entire rest of the episode.
We may have cut one or two of them, but
no, the references are all there. Are
they all?
We died laughing and had to stop recording and pick it back up over. It took me like 2 hours to edit that episode.
That really created a buzz, stuff like that. All Toy Story references.
God loves us to infinity and beyond.
Yeah,
exactly. So if you don't remember that, go back and listen again. We cut out the ringtone part, but you should pick up on the Toy Story references part. That one was hilarious.
It makes for a great ringtone.
Like setting it up, like I'm about to, drop one in, and then if you pay close enough attention, you'll hear a pause where I had to cut the thing and then back on.
If we still have the raw audio, Jack, we should do like an exclusive. Post that audio so they can listen to it. Yeah. Anyway,
and I think Will was getting frustrated initially, like, "Come on, guys, we gotta get it together." And Jack and I we could not get it together.
So long to get through.
And then he got into it.
It got to the point where Jack had to turn off his Zoom screen because he was laughing so hard. It just got us going. Yeah.
Oh man.
All right, what's another funny one?
Well, coincidentally, and this is terrible. It tells you our minds in the gutter. We did the sexuality ones, and it's so difficult to not have, it's things can come out, and I don't think we cut any. There was nothing we cut. There was nothing inappropriate, nothing like that. But it can be. There's awkward moments.
You want to be professional and mature and all that. Yes.
Correct. And so I don't think we cut anything from those, and we were actually pretty proud of ourselves because we can cut up from time to time and have a good time. And the Toy Story was just one of those moments. And so it's always good when we can get through these episodes. But matter of fact, I think we cut way less as we went along. Because we used to, I think we used to make some, jokes or whatever along the way. And again, nothing like Toy Story, stupid. Let's cut that.
So what's your, did you have?
I don't, only in the fact that after the Q&A, I think I was way more, I called Will on the way home.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Oh yeah.
I'm driving home after our Q&A and I'm like,
the head coverings debate.
All right, man. Like, where'd you fall on that? You were kind of quiet. And Will's like, well, I don't know. I think Jack makes some good points and I understand where you're coming from. And I'm like, Bro, I have no idea what I believe.
Joe, I think Joe's exact words were, "Yeah, I'm even more confused now than when we started." Than
I
before we
went
started the
in
episode.
with the one side and studied it quite a bit, and then went in on the like Jack had some points. I don't really know, and I've studied it since. Actually, I was just reading the book 2 days ago, and I got to finish it. I got a little bit left, maybe a couple chapters left, but I'm still working on that one in my mind. But yeah, that was one of those after the episode. I had to call you, Will, and debrief a little bit because I know where Jack falls on it. I wasn't sure, and then I was like, all right, I need a little sanity and I need a little bit of like down the line. Which way are you leaning? So I appreciate your help on that.
We ask him every day, where are you on the spectrum, Joe? Like,
that's kind of been their joke.
Yeah.
So where are you leaning today? Like, and it has flip flopped actually like 3 times. So keeps going back and forth.
All right, Jack, you got to tell.
Yeah, Jack, go for it.
Okay, I think it was the masculinity episode, and Joe and I, and it stayed in the episode. There was a little back and forth, a debate about. Joe was saying, as a man of the church, you should be getting up and leading, praying, or maybe teaching a class or giving a devo or whatever. And I'm a little bit more separation of gifts and roles, and that's not for everybody. Not everyone should become teachers, or not many of you become teachers, things like that. And so I disagreed. Well, then we had to stop. There was like an interruption or something, but it was very brief. And so I thought we kept on the interruption. And so Joe and I started
Jack thought we were just talking about the episode.
Yeah, still. I thought we were like recapping, because Joe, they said like, all right, we got to do the, like checking where we were on the outline. Let's get back into it.
Oh, man.
I didn't realize we got back into it, and so I started arguing with Joe as like brothers across the dinner table kind of thing. Like, no, what are you like? And
like no filter whatsoever.
Oh yeah,
and me and Joe are sitting here thinking like we're live, and we're like, is he really saying that?
Yeah, and not I'm not like being mean or anything, but just also like. Maybe a little stronger than I would come across on air, and I look and they're both looking like they got a weird look on their face. I'm like, did you guys think we were recording? They're like a 5-minute rant where they're just looking at me like.
It was longer than that. We were going back and forth for like 10 plus minutes. We had to cut it all.
Okay, I got it. Can I tell the joke? It's not really that bad. The one line that was, was hilarious. So again, Jack's trying to make the point that it's not something. It's not something that everybody can just get up and do. And he just very gruffly goes, "Look, guys, it's not open mic night. Talking about men getting up to preach or to sing or whatever." And
that's when we're like,
"Oh wow, that's kind of harsh."
Hold on a second. This was harsh up to this point, but it was all acceptable. Like somebody turned the mean dial up on Jack, but we can all post this. And when he said it's not open mic night, not every guy should, it's like, hold on, time out.
I think I left that line in the episode though. I don't know.
Did you?
I'm pretty sure you cut it.
Slice around it pretty closely, but
I thought you cut it.
It's not all as clean as it doesn't always come off clean on air anyway, but it's not as clean, not as what's the word I'm looking for? Yeah, not clean cut. Not it's not as smooth. That's what I'm saying. As it sometimes is presented as. But yeah, we just wanted to share some stories. End of year. Thank all the deep thinkers who have gone a year with us. Again, 52 episodes at this point, and so.
Go back and listen to the baptism one if you want.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. We're really excited for next year on a serious note too. I mean, this is something we really appreciate y'all listening. And contributing in the way you have the Facebook comments, the emails and stuff. We got a good lineup for 2020.
And we're also going to look for more interaction. We're going to try to build that in. We got some exciting things. We're going to try to increase interaction with you guys as much as possible. And so if you have ideas surrounding that as well, let us know. But yeah we're pretty excited.
Look out, we mentioned Facebook Lives, YouTube Lives on Thursdays. That'll start kind of mid to late January. And so just things like that, where you said more interaction, more content, more deep thinking, more Bible study, more everything that we're trying to do here. And so, that's we've gone over an hour here. I didn't realize we had that much to say. So, again, if you're catching this late, give us your overrated, underrated, properly rated hymns. Give us your takes on the two, Paul or Moses, Old or New Testament, Pentecost or Sermon on the Mount. Give us your hot takes, whatever you got. And give us your favorite episodes. That was the other one. And so there's a lot of fun with the Facebook. We got a lot of comments. I think there was 40 plus comments or something. And so really, thank you to all of you for tuning in. I hope you guys enjoyed it. This is a lot of fun for us. And so we will talk to you guys, Lord willing, in the new year. All right, that wraps up our holiday hangout episode. I want to thank everybody who's listening here after the fact on podcast or YouTube. Before we get out of here, I want to drop a reminder that our sale of the week through the end of the year is Will's Family Worship Guide. And so if that's a habit you're wanting to start up with your family, highly recommend it. It's on sale right now at focuspress.org. Go check that out. Set that New Year goal. And other than that, I think that does it for us this week. And Lord willing, we will be back to talk to you starting in 2023.